Okay. Eliyahu!
Finally,
You're finding the hot seat.
There you go. What did I get myself into?
Firstly, welcome very much. Thank you so much for coming. Not only for that, but for all those viewing. I spoke to Eliyahu right at the beginning of this, before I even started, and I thought, he was so prolific. You were so prolific in your videoing. And I asked you for some help, and you were so generous in your help and telling me exactly what to do, how to do it. And I don't think this whole operation would have been manifested if it wasn't for you. So thank you for that.
So hopefully we can take it on higher and higher, and more people listen.
Amen. Amen. So before we go into the Parashat Vayigash, let us just get an update on what you're doing. What's new in your life?
So, Two Chassid in a Pod is a project that we've been working on for a few years. It's a podcast, educational, fun, funny, and it's branched off to a whole bunch of different other things. Team Aleph, and we're working on a new series called The Farbi, actually in this room as well. A lot is taking place in this place. And,
it's a great space.
And the artist coordinating, amazing. I have a lot of that going on, manage a tourist location here in the old city in Tsfat as well, and trying to develop, the different stages of life, new challenges, new opportunities as well. My main thing for me right now is I want to do kiruv, and I want to help people like yourself that have a message to give over, which I think we all have a message to give over. The way of the world right now is going in the place of in the form of video, of content online. I grew up in a generation where I was fortunate to gather those tools of how to do those things, and I have it in the back of my hand. And I have a passion for kiruv. I have a passion for getting Hashem's message out there, the message of the tzaddikim, and I'm trying to do it myself while helping others as well along the way as much as I can. Whoever wants to help, to do it.
I have the pleasure of sitting next to you at shul in the morning, and it just amazes me. After prayer, Eliyahu takes out his phone, and every single day, it's so consistent. It's like Aaron lighting the menorah. So consistent. He just turns on, and I think, where does he get the energy from?
From the tefillah. Rabbi Nachman once said, all we have is learning and davening, prayer and learning.
And we have another thing in common. We both, one of the highlights of the week is your Turjuman's Suda Shishit, which you have become the sort of director of events for that having. Tell us a little bit about it and what it has taught you.
Wow. First things first, that meal is probably, I would say, close, if not 50% more, a little bit more of the reason that I ended up back in Tsfat. When I first came to Israel, I lived in Tsfat, but I could not handle the city at all. As a 17-year-old from Miami, not at all. Jerusalem was my place, but now coming back, I was living in Jerusalem, got married in Jerusalem, and after the whole epidemic went off, and everything that happened in the world the past 2 years, I came here for a breather. After all the rush of Jerusalem and the hecticness there, I came here just to breathe in Tsfat, and I ended up in Raviel's house, and I was blown away. And within a few weeks, I moved to Tsfat, and I gave him a lot of importance to that. Basically, it's an amazing third meal, which is the highest point of the whole entire week. And we're able to come and be hosted in a house of an artist. I like to call him an anthropologist, right? He's a people that knows people. He just knows. He can talk to you about the Japanese. He can talk to you about the Russians, right? Very worldly person. He reminds me a lot of my own father. And
who came once.
Yeah, he came once, and it was a very interesting meeting, right? Like this week's meeting. And it's amazing that he has a series of art that is so abstract, but it's based off of the Torah. And when you base something off the Torah, then it becomes infinite, right? Like the rabbi said, if you grasp part of the infinite, you're grasping the whole thing, right? You're grasping a little bit, you're holding on to the essence, right? So we get to be able to go into the hearts and souls of people just by way of them looking at a board of 613 paintings and pick them out. My part in making it all happen, I was trained for this for many years in Yerushalayim, being whenever I would go to meals, my goal was to be with the rabbi and to soak up his knowledge. And after a while, if I find one that I want to nurse from you right now, so it's going to end up that I'm going to be at your house a lot. And if I'm already a ben bayit at your house, if I'm already there all the time, I don't mind having a little bit of chutzpah, put people in charge, make sure that everything goes flow. I start to learn the rabbi and see what his needs are and what he's trying to do. My goal, I came for the message. I know other people might have came for many different reasons, but I know how valuable the message is. I want to make sure that it flows out. So I try to do what I can.
So if anybody is coming to Tzfat, please do come and
for sure
come to Yoel Tujman's Sudash Yeshida. It is something quite unlike anything else and very, very memorable and very enlightening.
100%.
So let's deep dive into Vayigash. So I'm grateful firstly that you did so much research into the parasha to get a better understanding of it. And we have this momentous confrontation between Yehuda, the king, and Yosef, the ox. And it is a real confrontation, such that we've never experienced until now. I guess we experienced a little bit through the meeting of Yaakov and Esav. But this is, also brothers, but like on the same team. But at the outset, we think they're different. They're in different teams. So, tell us something about how you see this, and I particularly want to ask you to draw out, the contrast between this confrontation and the last time they met like this, which was when Joseph was 17 and Yehuda was in his early 20s, and both of them had to mature through their different life experiences to meet again now at a much higher level.
So, in my understanding, first of all, this is my favorite parasha. Right? That's why I wanted to be part of, if I could, part of this episode. Going back, it's one of the reasons it's my favorite parasha, because in yeshiva I had an amazing Rebbe that would bring out the midrash. Specifically, the midrash of this week is out of this world. What they explain, it's no Hollywood movie could even come close to such an amazing script and scenery. And just to sit and to read the midrash and to envision that standoff in your head, like painted in your head, and just to be a fly in that room is amazing. So for me though, recently I got a completely different take on this parasha, which if you go back to the mothers of who we're speaking about, Rachel and Leah, then you see a whole bunch of different history.
So Rachel was the mother of
Yosef and Leah is the mother of Yehuda, right? And basically, the way that the teachings of Rav Morgenstern, that's how I got it handed to me, but it is much deeper. It's rooted in the Arizal, and obviously that's from the Zohar, right? But that every soul in the Jewish nation comes from the Shekhinah. And the Shekhinah is two parts. The Shekhinah is Rachel and it's Leah. Like anybody who knows who does Tikkun Chatzot, we have Tikkun Leah and Tikkun Rachel, right? Yes. There's these two parts. Why are you rectifying the Shekhinah? The Shekhinah are these two parts. What are the differences between Rachel and Leah? Rachel is the more spiritual, the pnimiyut, the internal aspect of our service of Hashem. And Leah is the more external aspect of it. Examples, Rachel could be making sure, meditating on the light of Hashem, which could be a mitzvah from the Torah. You cling to Hashem, you have dveikut, right? And whereas Leah is, prayer has times and I need to make the times, and the mitzvot and putting more emphasis on the external parts. Now, obviously in Avodat Hashem, they're both essential and they're both needed. Not one is better than the other. If we really had to look at it, obviously we're looking to get to the soul of everything. We're looking to get to the light of Hashem and everything. So yes, you could say the light is higher, but like we know with the body, if you don't take care of the body and the body deteriorates, that is also against the Torah.
Right.
And pikuach nefesh, right? Even if a person is maybe going to die on Shabbat, you break Shabbat to serve it. Right? Shabbat is, you'll die if you break Shabbat 12 times written in the Torah. Body's in danger, break Shabbat. So you need both. Now you go to the last meeting you said, right? The first time that they have this meeting. There, what was going on? Yosef is getting a cloak. He's having dreams. He is Rachel. He is in the Pnimiyut. He's dreaming. He's envisioning. He's seeing huge revelations, and he's telling it off. and all of his speech is filled with this light that it's annoying if you're a person from the Leah side of the world, where I have a job, I'm a shepherd, I'm a loyal, I'm a Talmid Chacham, I need to learn my Torah, I need to do my mitzvot, but come on, you're bichlal, you're flying in the upper realms, and we're living down here in this world. Yehuda, I'm a king. So now that was the cause, the root of all the jealousy. When you're a child, okay, that's the dreamer kid. But now we have, as the Zohar says, the meeting of two kings, two worlds colliding, two Mashiachs colliding. Now they're adults, now they're matured. The interesting thing is that also they never recognized Yosef. And the question is that everyone knows Yosef and Yaakov were twins.
Yosef
and Yaakov they looked the exact same.
They looked like twins, yeah, right. They looked the same.
So how did they not recognize it?
Right.
Yaakov was 84 years old when Reuven was born. And now we're talking about Yosef at 30 years old.
Right.
They never saw their father at that age, so they can't recognize. Right? But they're meeting now, and this meeting, in my eyes, according to these teachings, is now it's the mature state of it. Right? Where Yosef, all those dreams came true. And for Yehuda, that kingship of this world and everything going right now, all of a sudden there's a lot more going on than what I'm dealing with. This is not a diplomatic meeting. This is some mystic. There's energy here. If you read the Midrash, you see that they were stomping and they were threatening, and he started to speak in Hebrew, and Yosef said, I understand what you're saying, and they're going to go slaughter all of Egypt. No one will be left. And Yosef he's not moving. Yeah. Why? Because in that light of Rachel, I'm so confident in my pnimiyut. The light of Hashem is coming through me. Mitzvot, things like that. It might be, but when I have the light of Hashem, I don't flinch, I don't move. And for Leah, if the work I'm doing is not being so successful, I'm still going to do it, I'm still going to push forward. Right. So you have Yehuda pushing forward, and you have Yosef like playing a game, because he's so super confident in what's going on right now. The tikkun is happening, you guys are going to do tshuva. Everything I'm sending you is to push you to do tshuva. So in my eyes, this is how I see it. And now with that Hashem, this is a very deep idea. I think the more people understand the roots of all of the nation of Israel, which is Rachel and Leah, we're all either leaning to one side or the other, or quite balanced, right? And there's different sides that we have to work on. I think now this is that meeting, right? If you read the Haftarah of the Parasha, they take the two sticks with the names on each, and you unify them.
That's right. So
our goal in Avodat Hashem is exactly the outcome of this meeting, which was, what was it in the end? Everyone kissed and hugged and unified. And they leave in the Haftarah as this unification of Yosef and Yehuda. And how does that happen? By way of Binyamin. And Binyamin is Eretz Yisrael. And when you have this unity of Eretz Yisrael, that Eretz Yisrael has the ability to bring us unity, then you have Yehuda and Yosef, where I care about the mitzvot and the halachot and the external ramifications of the Torah, everything that is applied and I have to watch out for and I have to do, is very important to me. But I'm seeking out the most internal light possible within that. And if I'm a Rachel soul, the light is amazing. But if I don't have clear boundaries, and if I don't have the mechanisms that were laid out in the Torah, if I don't follow that, so what good is a light without a vessel? And the way that is best expressed is David HaMelech. The David sometimes, most of the times, is written without a Yud. But David with a Yud. That is David with a Yud. The Yud is Yosef. Where David already comes to a point, Yehuda comes to a point where he includes it. What's going on in David's life? He's on his mission to be the king of Israel. And the whole entire world is chasing him. And what does he do in all of his hardships? He turns to the internal light and clings to Hashem. It's all the light of Hashem. It's all the light of Hashem. So that's, I think, this is the download that I've been getting since I knew it was going to come from Vayigash.
So I guess Tzfat is definitely a Rachel city, is it?
For sure. There's no question. With that said, though, Shulchan Aruch came out of here.
Right. How do you explain that?
So that light also brought, and the Arizal, as much as it's Kabbalah, it's the systematic breakdown of the Zohar, which was unattainable. There was light with no limits.
Right.
So yeah, it's this, but it's the unification. It's the place of the unity. So
beautiful. So let's look at the narrative of Yehuda's plea or argument or defense or attack, whichever way you want to look at it. We said in the podcast that he really had three big prongs of attack. The first one if you're looking for a servant, a slave, then whatever you're looking for, I am better than Benjamin, so take me. If you're looking, I'm stronger, I'm more able, I'm more mature, take me. That's the first one. The second one was, I'm trying to remember, was that, gosh, I had just a flash now. The second one was that, that his father's soul, nafsho benafsho, his father's soul is bound up with Benjamin, and
He's the guarantor.
Before the guarantor, its father's soul is bound up with Benjamin's, and if the father's pure, then it cannot connect with another soul unless it's pure. Therefore, Benjamin must be pure. Therefore, it's a plant. He planted the goblet. And the third thing, and of course, he had to say that in a very sort of subtle way, because he couldn't upfront accuse the viceroy of being a cheater and a liar. And the third thing, which you mentioned before, which was I personally guaranteed him, and I promised my father that if I don't personally bring him back, then I will lose my olam haba. And even though I know that by switching with Benjamin, letting Benjamin go back and me staying here as a slave, I haven't fulfilled, although Benjamin's back, I haven't fulfilled my promise. And therefore I'm giving up my olam haba, I'm giving it up just to save Benjamin, to keep my promise to my father. And those were the three prongs of attack. But what do you think finally made the crack in Yosef's cool armor that he just couldn't take it anymore? He broke down and told everybody to leave the room.
One of the, I think when you hold up so much inside of you, right? At a certain point you can't take it anymore. He's coming to a point right now where Yehuda, like we said, Yehuda has this force that's coming, and he's not going to stop. And in the end, right, why is it the lion, right? The lion confronts the ox. The lion is the only animal that can stand up to the ox. There is no other animal that has the power to come against the ox. Only the lion. So now when you're faced with it, you can push, and he's in the position of power, but really, again, he's the Rachel side. So he is softer internally. He is more emotional. And when you're getting pushed into a corner, and really, what is his goal in the end of the day? We're talking about huge tzaddikim, right? Yosef and Yehuda, his whole entire mission is l'shem shamayim. It's all for the sake of heaven.
Right.
So at a certain point where, okay, the goal is achieved.
Right.
I kind of guess that's what it is. The goal is achieved, and even in that state, he's remembering to be considerate of them and to not embarrass people. Like say, right, he couldn't cry in front of everybody. That's one side, but on the other side, right, that everybody out the room and like to have this intimate moment together as a family. That this is the first time that they're about to actually hug. Like who knows how many times they actually hugged when they were kids? You know how many times they got along. They were two different camps.
Very true.
So like now it's coming to a point where okay, you know, like I definitely for the Rachel side. And I identify with this a lot. I have a strong Rachel side, right? You have a goal and you're trying to do it. But for a Rachel side, when the light is no longer there, it's very hard to sometimes to show up to the job. When you lose that, the O of Hashem, when you lose the light of Hashem, it's harder for me now to be taking part in this thing. So I think at that point it's already climaxed so much this story that you're starting the Yosef, and also you see with the progression of the Parashat, God forbid to say this, but the Chachamim say this, right? And you also brought this up from the Alshech in your episode, that Yosef is getting more and more haughty as the Parasha progresses, right? He starts as it's all about Hashem, it's all about Hashem, it's all about Hashem, and now it's becoming more like I came to sustain.
I'm going to sustain.
I'm going to give you. That's not Yosef. The nature of a Rachel Neshama is to know that it's all Hashem's light. Yeah. It's not about me. That's why the Leah likes the work. It's about the process. I'm successful, I'm not. There's light. There's the light of Hashem. There's not. The process is what I need to do. It's about down here. For a Rachel soul, that's very hard. So now we're getting at a point where I'm not this viceroy. I'm not this interrogator. I'm your brother.
Yeah.
I'm Yosef.
So let's bring that out a bit. I think the key point is what you said before, that, you know, he is cool, but it's a face, it's a front, it's an affront. And why? Because he has a mission. His mission is L'Shem Shamayim. And he has to be completely like steel for that to happen. And he is. And then when the tshuva finally is received, and he can see, wow, he's giving up his Olam Haba.
He's going to kill me for Benjamin.
It's done, that his work is done, and therefore he can put the mask down. Because it takes energy to keep that mask up, and he couldn't keep the energy.
It's the Rambam, right? The Rambam says, to be a real Baal Tshuva, you have to be in the same situation where you sinned, with the same energy and the same ability, and not make the same mistake.
Correct.
And then Yosef pushed the Yehuda and all the brothers into that point, and they were not going to make the same mistake. There was no chance. Right? So, it's a very, very beautiful meeting.
Yeah. Did you read anything about the illusions of this meeting of two kings with what happens when we pass on to the next world and Olam Haba, when we, because you know, we have, I mean, in Yoel Tujman's classic language, you know, I remember going to Yoel Tujman with 15 questions, and he would say, give me all your questions. Before you tell me the questions, I'm going to give you one answer that's going to answer everything. I think he hasn't even heard the questions yet. How's he gonna?
His mind is so settled.
And yet you see in this parasha how 2 words, Ani Yosef, answers all the questions. All the questions, not just of this parasha, from Bereshit right up to now, is answered in these two words.
So Olam Haba, I'm not sure, but I know that when we get to Beit Din, right, they teach about this parasha as well, that Mipanav, you spoke about this, right? Where they couldn't, the brothers, Nivhalu Mipanav, they were so taken back, so shocked to be in the presence, in the face, in the countenance, right? And we know from Hashem, when we say Panav, Hashem's face, Hashem doesn't have a face. It's His countenance, the presence, it's that light of Hashem that's coming. The Chachamim say, when we get to the world to come, and Hashem says, Ani Hashem, none of us will be able to stand it. Right. And it even says, there's opinions that say that the brothers in this meeting, they died. Why did they die? Because the only way to do tshuva on Chilul Hashem is to die. Person disgraces Hashem's name in public. The only way that the full tshuva, right? They can continue life, they get forgiveness and everything. But the only way, the final stamp that is taken off of the record of their neshama is if the person dies. There's not this 120, whenever, the right time, right? But that's the only way. The brother's here, and he says, Ani Yosef. That was the aspect of, I am Hashem. Boom, they all died, and they came back. They had a kapara of the Chilul Hashem for because what was saying, what they caused that all the nations around are making a laughing stock of the tzaddik, of Yaakov. Jacob's son gets sent into prostitution. The tzaddik's son, and by who? By the brothers? That's the worst Chilul Hashem possible, right? You're the son of the tzaddik, and this is how you're doing to your brother, who was the favorite child, who was clearly the successor of the father, the next tzaddik in line. And so there was such a chilul Hashem that the rabbis say that right there when he said Ani Yosef, and the lesson for us, and like you were saying, in the world to come, is we're all going to be having to answer to Hashem one day. And when we get up there, Ani Hashem, I am Hashem, it chills in my body now just thinking about it, you know?
Yeah, I think that those words are probably the most emotionally charged words of the whole of the Torah, in my opinion.
Yeah, again, right? How much had to happen until we get to that point? It's 22 years now. Yeah,
22 years. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the conclusion of the podcast, which really talks about why God actually sends us to Egypt in the first place. And I had a real problem with this because the Alshech is suggesting that, you know, as a result of the impurity of the snake with Adam and Eve, the whole of mankind was intoxicated with that, and that it would take 1,000 generations to remove. and Hashem removed it in 26 generations by putting this small group of people, this Bnei Israel, through tremendous challenges and hardships to ease that, to wedge that out of them. And of course, the culmination of that is 210 years of slavery, or at least in Mitzrayim, of which a vast majority of them was slavery. And I had a real problem with this because why? My thinking was like this: why would you put the precious Bnei Israel in the clutches of the most depraved tumah, impurity in the world in order to cleanse them? I mean, that was it just so counterintuitively. Take them to Geneva or something, and to the mountains up there, and cleanse them in purity.
Tsfat.
Tsfat, exactly. I just wondered whether you had read anything about that. And
So first thing you said, 210 years of slavery, right? That's what the rabbis say. That's gematria redu.
Yes.
Go down. Redu. Go down 210 years. What is it for? So all the Chachamim explain, Rabbi Nachman as well, right? Yerida, the tzorech aliyah. You go down, and like Rav Hanania said, right? What did Rav Hanania says? You have a dirty shirt, you have to put some chemicals in it. You have to use this abrasive friction to get it off, right? But now again, you're saying it's the worst place. The Maharal talks about this, that Am Yisrael, the nation of Israel, is tzura, is form, and Mitzrayim is the chomer, is water. So you have the form that doesn't ever change. Tzura is like tzur, like a boulder. It's strong, it doesn't move. And whereas the materialism, the physicality, that's water. It doesn't have its own shape. It will flow with whatever vessel you put it into, however you mold it. Essentially, Maharal also explains there that when you have opposites, they're connected, right?
They attract each other.
Not that it's attract, they are the same. They're the exact extreme of the same thing. So if Egypt is the complete physical, Am Yisrael on that spectrum is the complete spiritual.
Right.
The only way I can rectify it is on that spectrum. So my place that I have to go to has to be the complete opposite of what I am. It has to be, Yaakov and Esav have to be, right? They in this world, in the developed world, right? That is the complete opposite.
Right.
A rectified Jew with his head in line and keeping Torah and mitzvot is the complete opposite of a Yimach Shema Manatzi, right?
Right.
Complete opposite.
Right.
And that's the same thing here. The Mitzrayim was the Egyptians are the embodiment of physicality, right? The orla, the foreskin, to the point that it's not even necessary, and you can get rid of it. But Am Yisrael, the only way you can rectify them is
I guess it all comes back to Avram, who asked the question, how will I know that my children will inherit the land, that will have the merit to inherit the land? So God says, I'll tell you how. I'm going to take them 400 years. They're going to be strangers in a different country that's not theirs, and then slavery, and come out in a great number. And I guess the explanation is that if God places us in the worst deprived area and we survive it, then we can survive anything. I mean, that's basically the idea.
You get gold, right? When you have gold,
yeah,
to get paz, what they call paz in Hebrew, which is the most refined gold that you have. To get that, you use the furnace,
right?
And you lose a lot of what in the market is considered gold,
right?
But that is not what you're trying to get. You're trying to get paz. You're trying to get the most refined possible.
Right. So let's talk about that, because there is a loss, isn't there? And we learned that 80% didn't make it, and that's you look at business, right? Have a look at business, and if I tell you you could lose 80% of your money if you take this risk, that's not a very good odd, is it? And I feel for the 80%. I don't know why, but I just feel for that 80%, and thinking to myself, isn't there another way that God could have arranged it where 80% didn't get lost? But the answer of Hanania says, and the Alshech says, is that God doesn't interfere with our free will, and if 80% wants to stay in Mitzrayim, then that's where they're going to stay.
It's a sad reality, I think. For me, I always like to bring things to nowadays, because we're living here, right? And the Torah is this amazing book that's alive, that has in there the source of everything that we're experiencing. That reality, unfortunately, is kind of mimicked today in our society as a nation. How many people are keeping Shabbat? In America, you have over 80% intermarriage rate. In South America, it's way over 80%. Throughout the world, how many of the Jewish nation is really keeping Torah and mitzvot as their everyday, priority? It's a very small number. It's sad, and I obviously don't know the answer. It's Hashem's cheshbonot. I think though we can learn a very important message, that they died in the darkness, right? When you don't have light, when you don't have Torah and mitzvot, and you're in materialism all day long, that's darkness. Am Reka, the empty nation, right? When you're in that state of being, that you get lost there, and they all had the chance. It wasn't a slow process. It wasn't like Moshe and Aaron and all of the tzaddikim of that generation weren't warning people. We went through this again 70 years ago, that there was for sure people on the ground warning and saying things are happening. And again, now in the US, everything is picking up in anti-Semitism throughout the world, but mainly you see it in the US. And again, there's people amongst me, friends here, and people in the US that are like, guys, we have to start preparing to go to Israel. They're not even saying we have to run. Start preparing, and people are saying, don't be a fear monger. There's no difference. Right? There's no difference. This is, I don't know. I don't know to say the cheshbon of how to keep the 80%, but maybe we do our part in also trying to make sure that the 80% hears why we're part of the 20%.
Right. So, because we all were one nation, in other words, we can't, neither side can survive unless we combine together as one nation, and that's the really important
100%.
part. So we've come to the end of our 30 minutes, which was, I knew it would go very fast because it's fascinating. Any last thoughts about the parasha that we haven't yet covered? Anything you sort of really wanting to bring out that we haven't done already?
I pray that the Haftarah, where you have the unification of Yosef and Yehuda, obviously takes part in Mashiach ben Yosef, Mashiach ben David. Pray that it happens already, that we manage to see the unification in each one of our everyday lives. We are all interacting internally with Rachel and Leah, with Yosef and Yehuda. And it's this balance between the externalities, which are essential and needed and need to be worked on, and the light, the internal aspect of everything. There's people that are listening to this that are rooted in Leah, meaning that their pleasure is in this world and in the hard work and in, I show up to pray, and I know I'm praying to Hashem, I'm connecting to Hashem, but the time is important to me, my process, my ritual, I need to make sure everything's in line. And there's people that are listening that are more Rachel, that they need to feel it, and if they don't feel it, it's hard for them to do. Hashem makes it that we're placed with the opposites around us, right? And not only that we have to work on ourselves internally. It's, if a person can cling to the light of Hashem, that's great, but if they don't get disciplined in their avodat Hashem, they're going to be losing the light that is so cherishable to them, that is so important to them. So the whole entire goal that you're trying to get, you're losing because you're not putting your emphasis in the right places. In the same way as well, if a person is really strict with halacha, or wants to be machmir and stringent, and they really care about the ritual and the mundane, not mundane in the sense of secular, but the goof of the halacha, the body of the mitzvah, the how to do it, the stringencies of the physical aspect of the mitzvah, but they don't try to develop the spiritual vessel of contemplation, of going deeper, of looking deeper with your deeper consciousness, right, into the light of Hashem, then the same thing too as well. So you think really Hashem cares more about the way you do the mitzvah than clinging to Him? He made a system that you have to do it in this way. There's halachot, and you have to follow the halachot. No one is saying not to. But the goal of the mitzvot is to get to the light of Hashem. That is always the internal goal. And that's why the ultimate form of this is David with the Yud. Not just David, that's Yehuda. David with the Yud of Yosef, with that dream of the Yud, of the smallest little dot of light. But it's inside the David. Mizrat Hashem, if we all work more on that, I think we'll have the unification. We'll have both of these Mashiachim coming much faster. Mizrat Hashem.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. May you be successful with all the things that you're working on. May they all produce fruit. And for all the viewers, may you find the layer in you to create the vessel that will contain the light, and then find the Rachel in you to go up and bring the light down. May you have a blessed week. We really appreciate your joining us. And next week we have the pleasure of Rebbitzin and Rabbi Leiter, who are the founders, one of the co-founders of Ascent, and look forward to discussing Parashat Vayigash with them. All right, God bless. Take care. Thanks.
Thank you, guys.